They were grazing. Bramble said to Coltoon, in between munches, "I wonder if anything ever happens on the other side of Jura." And Coltoon said, "I know. I've got a tent, and we can take the tent for shelter, and we can go and explore." So they took a bag of Isla peat, a kettle, and their tent, and they trotted off towards Jura, with Coltoon leading the way and Bramble eagerly in pursuit. The peat was for a fire. The kettle was for making tea. Can you see the picture with the two ponies trotting? Yeah. And they're going to a place called Port Askaig. And you will see what happens in Port Askaig. Can you tell me what that is? It's a boat, so I'm going to read you about the boat. But when they got to the other side of Isla, they found the sea between Isla and Jura. And because they did not know how to swim, they decided to take the ferry to cross the sea. Though that was only part of the reason. The other reason was that Bramble did not want to get their peat wet. So Coltoon jumped on the ferry and Bramble came soon afterwards. You see, they're going up the gangplank and jumping onto the ferry. Do you know what peat is? It's like peat moss, and they use it for making a fire. They cut it out of the earth, and then they dry it, and then it makes a fire when it burns. And that's what they're going to use for their campfire. So this picture is them on the boat. So I'll read about their journey. They had a picnic of some hay and some chocolate on board the ferry. The other passengers were amazed. They had never seen two ponies travel across the sea before. At long last, they were told that the ferry was arriving at Oban. "Where is Oban?" Coltoon asked the man with binoculars. "Is it on Jura?" asked Bramble. "Dear me, no. Oban is on the mainland. We just sailed past Jura," he said. So there the ponies having their little picnic of hay and chocolate on board the ferry boat. And this takes place in Scotland, if you recognize the name of the town Oban, the Isle of Isla, and the Isle of Jura. Bramble and Coltoon were rather sad. "Oh dear, we didn't mean to come to Oban. We wanted to go to Jura." Some passing gulls started to laugh. "Caw, caw, caw." They wanted to go to Jura and they come to Oban. "Caw, caw, caw." And the gulls went on shrieking until Bramble got very cross. "Of course we wanted to come to Oban. We wanted to see what was on the other side of Jura. Come on, Coltoon. Let's get on another ferry and see what happens on the other side of Oban." So there's the big ship, and it's called Lord of the Isles. And that's what you sail from island to island when you travel on the west coast of Scotland. And there's the seagulls, and they're awfully rude. So this is the next boat picture. And see those big waves? It was a very rough crossing on the ferry. Coltoon's great uncle, who had been a fisher pony, used to say, "If you're down below decks in a gale, your breakfast will up in a pail." So Coltoon, this was Kathy's humor, so Coltoon and Bramble stayed out on the deck, and they were not sick, just a little bit uncomfortable. At last some mountain tops appeared between the troughs of the waves. It was the island of South Uist. "Land ho!" cried Bramble. "About time too," said Coltoon, who was truly not feeling very well. Have you ever heard of somebody being seasick when they go out in a boat? Well, that is what can happen when the waves are up and down. Your stomach goes up and down too. So, I missed the page. Well, now they've landed on shore, and can you see what they're doing here? Can you tell me? They put their tent up, and they're sort of sleeping on their heads, it looks like, doesn't it? But they're camping. Bramble and Coltoon trotted off with their peat, their kettle, and their tent until they found a nice place to camp. It was on the side of a mountain. They put up their tent, and before they went to bed, Bramble laid out the peats in a circle so they'd make a fire the next day. Kultoon filled up the kettle with water and put it on top of the peats. "First up makes the tea," said Bramble, just before he closed his eyes. But Kultoon did not hear him because he was already sound asleep. Can you see their little tea kettle on top of the peat fire, on the stones, waiting for breakfast? That's what they like when they get first thing up in the morning. "Wake up, Bramble," said Kultoon. "I am awake, Kultoon. I was thinking, shall we go to the other side of the mountain today?" "Good idea, Bramble. Let's have tea first." Soon the kettle was on the boil, and they made their morning tea. They each took turns to hold the kettle in their mouths so the other could drink tea. And in case you're wondering how they made the fire, this is what they did. They struck their hooves against the stones until there were sparks, and the sparks made the peat catch fire. See the ponies? They're sort of jumping up against a big stone like this one. And when their hoofs hit the stone, it makes sparks. And that's how they make fire. And in the other picture, you can see the sunrise, the sun coming up, and they're drinking tea. One pony holds the teapot and pours it out for the other pony. So they're having their breakfast. Bramble was surprised. He said, "Kultoon, there's a man over there cutting peat. Let's talk to him." Kultoon was shy. "You talk, Bramble," he said. Bramble explained to the man that they came from Isla. "Isla," the peat man exclaimed. "I've heard of Isla. It's famous for whiskey. Could you tell us, please, what happens on the other side of the mountain?" "That's where you'll find the prince's cave." Bramble and Kultoon were excited. They wanted to find the prince's cave and the prince too. So this is a man on the Isle of South Uist, and he's cutting peats from the earth. It's like digging them up with a spade, and they cut the peats and they pile them up to dry, and they use them for making their fire to keep them warm in the winter. And the peat man has just told him about the prince's cave. It was a very long way to the other side of the mountain. They went up and up and up, and then they went down. It was very steep, so they had to go very slowly, or else they would fall. At last they got to the bottom. They stood by a waterfall and looked up. They could see a dark hole in the edge of a cliff. It was the entrance to a cave. They were very curious and a little bit frightened. Bramble said, "Shall we look inside the cave?" "You go first, Bramble," said Kultoon. "You're the brave one." So here's the picture of the mountains, and the two ponies, Kultoon and Bramble, are climbing up, 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 and down, 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 and they come to the waterfall. It's a long way. Kultoon was just about to follow Bramble when he heard someone behind him. He turned around and saw a handsome man in a kilt and a bonnet. He forgot all about being shy. "Are you the prince?" he asked. "I am honored to meet you," replied the stranger. "Do you live here?" asked Kultoon. "No, my country is far away," replied the prince. By this time, Bramble was also looking at the handsome stranger. "Our island is far away too," he said. "We've come a long way from home." So this is the two ponies, Kultoon and Bramble, talking with the prince. Can you guess who the prince is? Who's a famous prince in Scotland? You'll find out on the next page. So he's a long way from home. Prince Charlie, for that was the prince's name, made the two ponies an offer. He said, "If you help me sail my ship, I will offer to take you home." Bramble and Coltoon were surprised to see a sailing ship in the bay below. It was anchored, and it had red sails and tall masts. "Quick, all aboard!" cried the prince. "What about our tent?" exclaimed Bramble. "Pack it," said the prince. "And our kettle," said Coltoon. "Pack it too," said the prince. See the tall sailing ship in the bay? And the two ponies are looking down at this sailing ship. So they're going to be taken for a trip on the ship to go home to Isla. The two ponies helped sail the ship. They held on to the ropes and took turns at the tiller. The prince climbed the mast to look for the Paps of Jura. After 2 days and 2 nights, the prince cried, "Look, the Paps of Jura! We must be near Isla now." Soon they had brought the ship into Port Ascade. They all got off and went to the hotel for some refreshment. The ponies had a bucket of fresh water each, and the prince had a good dram of Isla whiskey. He said, "This is the spirit of life. Bring me a barrel. I shall sail happily now for France." So that's where Bonnie Prince Charlie was going home to. Do you know where France is? France is a faraway country from Scotland, isn't it? Because the ponies live in Scotland, and Bonnie Prince Charlie is going to go home to France. He just lost the battle. That's why he was hiding in the cave. I explained the story before you came on the scene. So Bramble and Coltoon returned to the moss at Coltoon Farm. Sometimes one or other of them would look at the Paps of Jura and wonder, do you remember when we traveled with our tent to the other side of Jura? Yes, and we met Bonnie Prince Charlie. I wonder if he got home all right. I expect he did. After all, there were lots of other Isla ponies who wanted to sail with the prince. Yes, yum. I'm glad to be back home again. So am I. The grass is so green here. Yum, yum. So that's the story of the ponies, Coltoon and Bramble's adventure with Bonnie Prince Charlie when they went camping on the Outer Hebrides. And they met Prince Charlie.